Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trey Ball. Shout out to the LA Lakers. They took my Miami Heat out in 6 games. Can't say it wasn't expected, but the fight that Miami Heat did put up, that was big time, especially by Jimmy Butler and the rest of those guys. It was a big time performance, but obviously it came up short when you got two superstars on the other side, like LeBron and Anthony Davis, being able to control and dominate a game like they were each and every single night. If it wasn't for Markieff Morris and Danny Green missing big time shots, it could have ended up being a 5 game gentleman's sweep. But sometimes you need a little bit of luck to hang on against a team like that, and it worked out in Miami's favor for a couple games. Um, but going into this coming season, I think I'm just going to break down not each conference, each division. So today, obviously, leading off with the defending champs, the LA Lakers, we're going to start in the Pacific division, and this is going to be a very stacked division. It might be one of the more exciting divisions in the league this year. Golden State, hopefully, they're on a comeback trail to playoff dominance. You got Steph Curry back in the fold, healthy. Draymond's going to be coming back. He's going to be revving up to go. Unfortunately, there's no Klay Thompson, but you still have two capable but you still have two capable defenders, but also two very capable offensive players in Andrew Wiggins, and you picked up Kelly Oubre just on the whim, and you still have some firepower there. I think just the other night they each combined for about 70 points, and that's great production when you still don't have Draymond Green added to that mix. And then you get a healthy Kevon Looney back. I think it's going to be a pretty good team. They're looking like they're going to make a good push towards the playoffs. I think they're going to, they're not going to be a first round knockout. They'll probably get knocked out in the second or third round if they run into the wrong team, if they just simply have a bad matchup. But I can see this team, knocking on the door of the conference finals, possibly running into the LA Lakers. Um, I think Steph Curry is going to be high up on the MVP ladder. I think he's going to be maybe 1 through 5. Obviously, you have LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kawhi. Dame is probably going to be knocking on that door of the MVP race pretty soon. And then you have Giannis in the Eastern Conference. He's the two-time defending MVP. So it's going to be a pretty good race, and it's going to be nice to see at least one of the Splash Brothers back into the fold, and Steph Curry returning to that MVP form. Um, Surprise team in this division is going to be the Phoenix Suns. I like the backcourt of Devin Booker and Chris Paul, and the biggest thing in adding CP3 is the effect that it's going to have on DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is a very skilled player. He's a #1 draft pick for a reason. He gets you, I believe he's been averaging about 18 and 10. If it wasn't for the suspension, I think they very well could have been in the playoffs, because we've seen what they did in the bubble, going 8-0. And the Devin Booker has been phenomenal the past couple years, holding up his end of the offensive bargain. Now you have a guy like Aiden, and then you add in CP3, a very talented point guard still in this NBA. Even with everybody, uh, changing how they view the point guard, being more of scorers and being more athletic, CP3 can still hang with the best of them. He's a very good scorer in the mid-range game. I think that's going to help him out. I think it's going to help Booker out, with you have somebody working the mid-range, you have somebody working the post, and Booker, majority of his points are from the three-point line to the mid-range, but I think he's doing a better job of actually getting all the way to the basket as of late, and I think it's just going to work wonders for his offensive game, having two other guys that can get you 20, 25, in some cases 30 points every other night. And then you also add the mental toughness coming from the Miami Heat with Jay Crowder. That's a big pickup. That's going to be a bigger pickup than most people think. And defensively, they're going to be a lot better than they have been the past couple of years, simply with CP3 and Crowder. But also, you have Ayton that's going to be healthy and available every single night this coming season. So I got high hopes for this team. I may not see them as a second round or conference finals type team, but they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. This is going to be one of those teams that you don't want to see in the first round. And also, it's going to be a team that if they're playing, you're going to want to tune in to watch them. You're going to want to be on NBA League Pass and look up a Phoenix Suns game. That's not something that we've been saying for the past several years. I mean, maybe the past 10 years since Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire are no longer there. So it's going to be exciting basketball to be played. I don't expect too much from the Sacramento Kings. I think they're just going to be what they've always been, a very mediocre team with a lot of talent. You add in another mediocre player that had a lot of potential in Hassan Whiteside to go next to Marvin Bagley, but the bread and butter is still going to be De'Aaron Fox getting into the open court, and then in some cases running a pick and roll. So I think Fox and Hield are going to be a big portion of their offensive scoring and their half court offense, but I don't see too much out of them, especially losing Bogdanovich and he goes out to the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, that's a key loss because he reminds me somewhat of um, what the other Bogdanovich is for the Utah Jazz and what TJ Warren is for the Indiana Pacers. He's a very capable scorer, but he's not somebody you're gonna run your offense through. I think he's just a guy that's gonna get you a good 15 points to take some pressure off of the star players. That's his role, and that's what he's good at. So now you no longer have that. I mean, what happens when you have De'Aaron Fox out, or what happens if you have Hield out? One of those guys aren't there. Where are you going to get scoring? I think that's going to be very important for them this coming season to decide. Okay, if we want to take this next step, who do we need to add into that role now that we let Bogdanovich walk right out the door? And I don't think it's necessarily you can never fault the players for taking the money. Um, Buddy took the money, the big deal a couple years ago. De'Aaron took another deal this summer for the extension. When you're a young player like that, always take the money. Always take the money first, and then a couple years you look for where you want to see yourself playing, where you want to see yourself um, finish your career, or maybe that next chapter elsewhere if the organization doesn't get their mind right. So I mean, I don't think Sacramento will be any better than maybe the 10th seed this coming season because they haven't shown me otherwise. Going into the whole bit about the Los Angeles Clippers, um, granted, being up 3-1 in a series is a very control. You're in the driver's seat. You are in control of the entire situation. Um, Granted, 3 straight games, Kawhi Leonard didn't show up and be that superstar that we've seen in the past. But I'm not saying I'm giving him a pass. I'm just saying Kawhi doesn't really have to prove that he can do that. We know he can. The disappointment is from when we take this year's Kawhi Leonard and we hold him up against the Kawhis that we've seen in the past, and it just doesn't match up. He didn't meet the standards that he set for himself as a player, set for himself as a two-time Finals MVP, both with the San Antonio Spurs and the Toronto Raptors 2 years ago. So it's not like we're saying Kawhi needs to prove that he can get done. No, we're saying Kawhi needs to prove that he belongs in the same breath as a LeBron, belongs in the same breath as a Kevin Durant, because that's what was next. That's what the next challenge was, because once they get past Denver, they had to face LeBron, and he was going to have to prove that, hey, I can go toe to toe with one of the absolute greatest players that this game has ever seen in LeBron James. And we failed to see that. So now there's question marks on the Clippers. And then, I mean, the outside conduct, the asking for favors, special treatment, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, that's always gonna put a damper on the chemistry. But even then, when you step onto the floor, you just got to want it more than the other team for literally 1 quarter. That's all they had to do for one single quarter. They just had to want it more than Denver, and it didn't happen. They were fine for 4 games and 3 quarters, and they ultimately fell apart simply in that fourth quarter of game 5. And you gave Denver life. You gave them hope that they can come back and make a comeback again like they did against Utah Jazz. And one of the biggest things that's disappointing to me is Paul George shifted blame from, shifted blame to Doc Rivers and this person and that person. It seems to be a ongoing story with him. You know, when he was in Indiana, they lost a couple games because CJ Miles didn't pass him the ball, and OKC, Damian Lillard took a bad shot and he shouldn't have taken that shot, so that's why we lost. Simply look in the mirror and say, hey, I didn't bring my A game for the fifth or sixth straight NBA playoffs. I didn't show up, I didn't close the deal, I didn't get the job done. Just man up and be a man about it. And that's ultimately what is going to be the storyline for him until he actually does break through in a playoff series. I mean, you look at, like I said, let's go back. Kawhi. He's proven himself in the past as a two-time finals MVP, but he didn't prove that he belongs in the same conversation as KD and LeBron because he hasn't gone head-to-head with them and beat them on his own. He hasn't looked across from a KD without Tim Duncan or Manu Ginobili or Tony Parker. He hasn't looked across at LeBron in the Battle of LA. I mean, these are the things that people are going to talk about as the narrative going forward with you. And we're looking at Montrezl Harrell, Lou Will, Pat Bev, Shamet. We're looking at those guys because we seen what they did against Golden State the previous year without Kawhi, without PG-13, without the bigger guns. We seen what they did without them. They pushed them to 6 games when they should have been swept. So we're looking at their performance and compare it to what they did before and how they should be playing with more guns and more ammo on the offensive side of ball alone, not to mention two two-way superstars. When I look at the Clippers, I say the 3 guys, you didn't measure up to what you performed the previous season. Kawhi, you didn't measure up to what you've done in 2 NBA Finals MVP performances. And Paul George, you just don't measure up to having a nickname, Playoff P. You're not. Listen, Playoff Rondo is real. He gets locked in. He goes to another place. He takes it to a whole nother level. So the fact that you give yourself a nickname called Playoff P and you don't show up playoffs after playoffs after playoffs, it's a problem. And you can continue to use the excuse or use the excuse of coach didn't use me how I like to be used. I wasn't getting my shots. I wasn't in this situation or that situation. Listen, you've been in this game long time. You don't hear Damian Lillard saying that. You don't hear Dame saying that. You don't hear KD saying that. Steph, you don't hear LeBron. You don't hear anybody else making those excuses. You don't hear Giannis doing that. When Giannis, I mean, we've watched Giannis fall playoffs after playoffs because, he lacks a perimeter jump shot. He's never shifted the blame. He said, you know what, I got to be better. I got to be comfortable in these moments, so on and so forth. So those are the things that are keeping PG-13 from going to the next level, not as a player, but as just simply as a playoff performer. And that's going to be an even bigger problem with Montrez leaving from the Clippers, going across town to the LA Lakers, because now not only do you see them 3 or 4 times in your division, you probably got to face them 4 to 7 times in the playoffs just to get to that next level. And with Trez being on the other side, that takes away from you, but it also adds something to the Lakers. Now you add Montrez to a big lineup of Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol. So the Lakers probably have the best front court in the NBA with AD, LeBron, Gasol, Trez, and the Morris twins and Kuzma. Granted, I've been hard on Kuzma the past couple of years, but I mean, I think this season he's going to be even more comfortable in his role because it's more defined now. You add in guys like Matthews and KCP, and you bring in Schroeder and Trez. He doesn't have to score 15 to 20 like they expected him to when they first picked up AD. Now he could just get you 10 to 15, hit wide open shots, get timely baskets, and he's not pressured into having to perform to the level of some of the guys that got traded away, like Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram came in most improved player, putting up 25 plus a night, and everybody's looking at Kuzma like, that's why we kept you. So that pressure is no longer there. That's not on his shoulders anymore. He doesn't have to carry that weight. So I expect him to be more relaxed, especially coming off a championship. That pressure isn't there where, if we don't win, we got to make some moves and you're most likely the odd man out. So I look for a better season for him. I think the addition of Schroeder, when you lose a guy like Rondo, you pretty much just swap parts with a younger player. You swap out Rondo for Schroeder, you swap out Dwight for Trez, and then you swap out JaVale McGee. I mean, he's a very athletic player, a good shot blocker, but you also add in a former defensive player of the year in Marc Gasol, who's a great passer. I've seen the past couple games. They've been seeing how things look running the offense through him. And that's just absolutely going to be a terror on the offensive end. If you have LeBron and AD not even having to have the ball in their hands to control the offense, you give it to your center and you let those guys work off the ball. It's just going to be a beautiful offensive game when you have so many great passers. I mean, Anthony Davis, underrated passer. LeBron, we know about Brown, we know about Gasol. You add in Schroeder. All these guys are good passers, good ball handlers, and the toughness has just gone through the roof. Like I said, I mean, you add in Matthews and you still bring back KCP, you bring in Trez. That's a lot of defensive toughness on that side of the ball. So I expect them to get somewhere around the 60 win mark. I really do believe they're going to have another dominant year. The LA Lakers, in terms of championship aspirations, I think they do have a great chance to repeat. But because I am a Miami Heat fan, I'm gonna pick the Miami Heat to win a 2021 NBA championship. That's just a biased opinion, but a logical basketball analysis is saying that the LA Lakers could win this season, not only this season, but also the following year. So big things coming for that division. I love it. Golden State, Los Angeles Clippers, Sacramento, Phoenix Suns, LA Lakers. It's a lot of great basketball to be played in this division, and I can't wait. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Special thanks to Curtis Murphy and Murphy's Elite Training for sponsoring today's episode of Trey Ball. If you want to upgrade your game or simply upgrade on merchandise, his link is in the description below. Until next time, you know the rules.